Square, be square, vehicles out. Care. Is it rolling? Oh yeah, that's a thing. Well, actually that's somewhere. Cool. Hello again, fellow YouTubers. So unpleasant back after a 3-month hiatus. God, I'm lazy. Anyway, so I hear that a recent Bond movie came out. And I also recall that I was supposed to review Bond things, so let's do that. Anyway, the following is a review of Spectre. And gonna point out, there are gonna be spoilers in this, just like in every other Bond review I've done, there are gonna be spoilers, so heads up there. If you haven't seen the movie, go check it out. Really good use of money. And without further ado, hopefully you know how my reviews go, but just in case you haven't, because again, it's been a long time since I've done one of these, all Bond films are on a 5-star rating for me, so I go the initiative of 10 stars. So the following is going to see where this ranks from 1 to 10, but more like from 5 to 10, because again, all Bond films are 5 stars, obviously. Even the bad ones. Even Quantum, because Bond is amazing. And I go based on plot and story, scenery, follow-up, music, and characters. See, it's been so long even I've forgotten a little bit. So, without further ado, let's dive right in, and let's talk about Spectre. So, first off, we've got plot/story. Not bad, not bad. It starts out kind of like this thing where you don't really know what's going on, something shadowy's going on, and it starts out okay. It starts out like, oh, there's gonna be this thing. And I did read a couple of reviews that stated it was a lot like the Mission Impossible 5 Rogue Nation plot, and to be fair, it kinda is. The villain's plot isn't very inventive anyway, which really kinda is sad, because this is Spectre, like the head organization, and that's really the marketing for this movie. It's Spectre. Spectre's back. The special executives of counterintelligence, terrorism, revenge, and extortion is back. The Octopus is back. Spoiler, Blofeld is back, it's back. And I think that's what a lot of people probably came to see, and not the actual plot, because the actual plot is kind of very thin, and it almost just isn't there, and it's kind of just Bond doing Bond things to take out Spectre, because we know it's there, so Bond just kind of knows it's there. The plot and the villain's plan is that they are going to have a man on the inside that has global security over everything. And I'm just like, okay, done before, I guess? The plot isn't the worst, but it's not that very innovative, and that should hurt the story, but trust me, as we get further into this review, it does not. So, overall, the plot, I give it a half a star, just because, yeah, it's not the best, but it's not the worst. Half a star for a story and plot. Next, we move on to scenery. Oh my god, this film looks amazing. It is shot perfectly. Every single moment, you are enjoying looking at it. You look at this, you watch this film, if nothing else, to enjoy how it looks. Because this is a really good-looking film. It does kind of hinder it because a lot of Bond films you can just pop in and kind of listen to on and off while you're doing other things like other trivial tasks, but with this one, you can't really pop it in just because you have to really admire it and actually look at it. This is a film that you probably want to sit down with some people and just kind of watch and be like, this is a good Bond film. It does look amazing. Everything is just, it's shot well. I can't say that enough because it really looks gorgeous. I had to use the G word. It looks that good. And the opening scene, the opening has like this shot that is continuous, kind of like in, no, it's just a continuous shot, and it just looks amazing. It really looks amazing. So, I give Scenery a star because, good job, director, you made this look awesome. One star for Scenery. Next we move on to follow-up. Sorry guys, but let's be honest here. It's following up Skyfall. Do you know how hard it is to top that? Because let's be honest, Skyfall is a masterpiece. It is perfect in pretty much every way, so to follow that up is really hard to do, and I do not think that's what the director's intent was, because he knew, okay, I just made a really awesome Bond movie, I'm not going to be able to top this, so instead of going the route of, I'm going to try everything and throw everything I can to top it, he was like, no, let's just make a Bond movie. Didn't top Skyfall, but it's still a good movie. It does actually tie in very well to some of the other Bond films and kind of just gives Quantum kind of the back seat, and it's just like, yeah, Quantum of Solace didn't exist. But it does reference itself to Casino Royale and Skyfall very well. It does integrate that very well, especially with talking about past characters that have died and things of that nature. So, while it does integrate it well, though, again, it's hard to follow up Skyfall, guys, let's be honest. So, follow-up, I have to give it a half a star. Moving on to music. Oh my god, the opening title sequence. Some funny things I'd like to point out. First of all, they really like to indicate that there's an octopus in the opening title sequence. If you can't see the octopus, I feel so sorry for you. You must have very bad eyesight. Because it is kind of in your face at times, not gonna lie. There's even a moment where Bond is caressing this woman, there are tentacles everywhere, and I'm like, I've heard enough about hentai, I know where this is going, I know where this is going. For those of you who don't get that joke, please don't look that up, just save yourself. Regardless of all that though, it still is an amazing opening title sequence. And a lot of people, the writings on the wall as a song in general, a lot of people are very split on how they feel. Some people are like, yeah, this is a good song. Other people are like, ooh, this isn't that good. I'm in the middle. On the one hand, I wouldn't necessarily listen to it on its own unless I'm getting ready for something, because the fact that Sam Smith does vocal acrobats everywhere and sometimes he even sounds like a woman, and I remember someone that I know saying, oh, there's Sam Smith and this other girl. I'm like, no, it's just Sam Smith. And they're like, oh. Because he gets a bit high-pitched at times. On the other hand, though, with the opening title sequence, the song fits perfectly. And I was hoping that would happen. It did. That song fit perfectly with the opening title sequence and with this movie. It just fits so well. On its own, it's probably not the best Bond theme. There are probably a couple of other Bond songs that we could have that are better to listen to on their own, like You Know My Name is a really good one, Skyfall is amazing. But this one, it's kind of on the fence for me, but still, the opening title sequence is really what gets this song moving, and the rest of the musical accompaniment to the rest of the movie is very well done. So, overall, it was a close call, but I will give a full star for music because it was pretty good. That opening title sequence just blew the rest of my expectations out of the water. So, 1 star for music. Finally, characters. Not bad. This film did some good stuff. For starters, Daniel Craig as Bond, this is probably the first film where he actually fully embraces the Bondness in the series of James Bond. Because Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, and I would say Skyfall 2, he kind of acts a little bit more like something you'd see in Bourne, or something you'd see in Bourne, most likely. He doesn't act as Bondy as he does in, say, the Sean Connery era or the Pierce Brosnan era. But in this movie, this is Daniel Craig's I Am Bond movie, because he embraces Bond completely. And not to say that he wasn't doing it in his past previous films, but this is the first one where I feel that this is the Bond we were looking for. And some of the fans, again, are very split on how they feel about this movie, but I can at least say that this is what we call classic Bond. It's not a masterpiece, and it's not garbage. It's Bond. It's good. It is solid good. So, I think Daniel Craig did a great job as this, and there are some nice quips with him. There are actually funny moments in this movie. We actually have the comedy, because we didn't have that as much in the other Bond movies. There were some, but not as much, so we actually have some comedy in this one where we're like, I can laugh at that. The new M, I like him. He's a good replacement to Judi Dench's M, especially considering in the last movie she really didn't take getting stabbed in the back that well. Yeah, I made a joke. Deal with it. Anyway, Moneypenny does a good job in this movie. Some people are. I'm not sure how people feel about her being black. I think it's fine. I mean, it's fine. I have no arguments with that. Bill Tanner's in there, I guess. They don't have much to do for him, do they? He's just kind of along for the ride. Q in this movie. Finally, we can embrace the Q that we've been missing pretty much through Casino and Quantum and most of Skyfall, because Q in Skyfall really didn't do that much for me. But in this one, finally, we get the Q we're looking for. The guy who does gadget stuff and actually gives us an exploding watch. Thank you. He actually has a funny scene where he's interacting with Bond and he's like, hey, look at this car. And he's telling all about how awesome this car is. And I'm like, yeah, it's for 009. And I'm like, Q? And I'm just like, yes, that is the Q we've been waiting for. That's the Q that we need now. Finally, we got that back. Trying to think. Villains. Before I talk about the main one, I will talk about some of the other ones. The guy you see in the opening is pretty good fresh meat for Bond to get rid of. And I will say that for the action scenes, 2 out of 3 helicopters don't crash. 2 out of 3. Good job, Bond film. You didn't crash all your helicopters. Thank you. The introduction to our main villain and our main henchman, Mr. Hinks, I believe his name was. He wasn't addressed that by name, I don't think. Very intense. It's a great introduction scene. It's just has enough subtlety and enough seriousness where you're like, yeah, this is a thing. Just the whole introduction to the Spectre organization is very reminiscent of what we saw before without... It's not as over the top, but it's still there. You can tell that, yes, this is Spectre. And Mr. Hinks. Finally, we get a henchman! Thank you! It's been like, what, 3 movies since we got one? Finally! And he's a good henchman. He's got his little trait with his thumb things, which I think are there to help squeeze out the eyes, because he gouges out a guy's eyes out in one scene, and it's just... It's a pretty intense scene. And Mr. Hinks as a henchman overall, pretty good. His demise is handled pretty well, I think. On first viewing when I saw this movie, when Hinks got thrown out of the train, I'm like, oh, he's gonna come back, right? And then he doesn't. I was like, aw. On second viewing, because I've seen this twice now, yeah. It makes sense, because the rest of the movie, there wasn't really much need for Mr. Hinks to be there, so... yeah. How they disposed of him, I thought was fine. He only got one line, and I'm like, yes, that's how you treat a Bond henchman. If you make him quiet, you have to treat that right, and they treated that perfectly. They had a couple car chases with him, and Mr. Hinks just doesn't have good luck with cars, I don't think. But he survived, and Mr. Hinks wasn't fully indestructible, but he did survive some things, some other things not so much, so overall, good Bond henchman. As for the main villain and the group, Spectre. First off, we have Ernest Stavro freaking Blofeld in this movie. Yes! More of that, please. More of that. Because a lot of people are like, that wasn't a good Bond villain, but I liked it. It's a great callback. You brought back Ernest Stavro Blofeld. And he actually did something, because if you'll notice in most of the Bond movies with Ernest in it, in You Only Live Twice, what does he do? Doesn't really torture Bond, he just kinda almost has Bond fed to the piranhas, I believe. He holds him at gunpoint maybe like once or twice. Okay. And on Her Majesty's Secret Service, he has him knocked out, and granted, I haven't seen a lot of Bond movies recently, but I don't think he really does much else except kill his wife, which is, no, he was just driving the car. He was driving the car. He didn't actually kill the wife, but didn't really do much to Bond there. In Diamonds Are Forever, again, doesn't do much with Bond. He just kind of holds him at gunpoint and is like, I have this brilliant plan, and stuff like that. And granted, we had build-up of him being in the shadows, so now seeing him was nice. And then in For Your Eyes Only, he gets thrown into a smokestack and is presumed dead. So, to see Blofeld in this movie toying with Bond's skull, literally, in a really intense scene that has you gritting your teeth, you're like, dang, this Blofeld means business. I like Christoph Waltz's Blofeld, okay? I like him as Blofeld. He's a good embodiment of Blofeld. He does a lot of things right. He has this kind of taunting factor, and granted, a lot of people were concerned that Blofeld was Bond's brother in this form of the franchise, which I don't see any issue with it. Just gives more of a personal relation to Bond, I guess, but overall, they're stepbrothers, so I really just kind of passed it off. He's still a good Blofeld. I still like him as Blofeld. He does a good job portraying Blofeld. And there was a Persian cat in one scene. I mean, as the cat. How can you ignore that? The Spectre group overall, I liked it, but at the same time, I felt like it could have been expanded upon just a tad bit more, because there was a bunch of people all at the couple times we saw Spectre really grouping together, and there was just a bunch of people, and that's just like, then they all just kind of vanish, and I'm like, huh, why'd they all vanish? And I will nitpick that I don't think this Blofeld knows very well about the human body, because he says a couple things about Bond's head as he's just drilling into his skull and neck, and then Bond just gets out of the chair fine, so I don't know if Blofeld knows much about the human body. And he has the scar too, so it's like, that is nice. That is a nice touch. And as I go more into characters, at the end of this movie, the Bond girls in this movie, first one was good. She started as a typical Bond girl. Second one, the second one seemed kind of old to me. Did anyone else, catch on to that? That one seemed a bit old and a bit, I don't know, something just rubbed me the wrong way with that one. And the main Bond girl, Dr. Swan, or Mrs. Swan, or whatever, I thought she was fine, as a typical Bond girl. Here's what a lot of people have a problem with when it comes to her, though. They get this feeling that Bond's treating her like the one. And the end credits and the ending scene does kind of indicate that maybe she is the one. Here's my thoughts on that. I don't think she is, for a couple of reasons. One, Bond still remembers Vesper. There's actually a cute little scene where Bond is looking through, well, it's not cute, but there's a scene where Bond's looking through videotapes in one of Mr. White's areas, and he finds an interview of Vesper, and he just looks at it for a little bit before tossing it aside. So, he remembers Vesper. He still cares about Vesper. So, there's that. There's also the fact that Tracy has not been introduced into this reboot of the Bond franchise, so I'm not sure if they're still going to try and doing that, but because I don't think that this girl's name was, it wasn't Tracy, I just remember her last name, but regardless. So I think that they might introduce Tracy in another film, I just kind of have that feeling because she is a very important character in the Bond franchise. Just saying that out loud. So, and I get where people come from with the end of this movie where it feels like, oh, Bond's leaving. It's like, no. Just treat it like a normal Bond ending, guys. How many James Bond endings have we had where Bond is literally banging a girl in a bed? Does that mean she's the one? No, because we see him next time. He isn't with the girl, he left. I mean, because he's Bond. Bond doesn't leave. It's Bond. So, the way I treat the ending of this movie was like, it's just another Bond ending. It just doesn't involve as much of the sex. So yeah. Overall, I will give characters a full star just because I think it was done very well. The chemistry was there. Oh yes, C's a character, but it's C and nobody likes C. He was just kind of there. I mean, yeah, I don't really... He was the only character I really didn't like. His character didn't do much for me, but regardless. Overall, I give characters a star just because great chemistry within the mix of characters. It would have been nice if Bill Tanner did something. You'll be able to do something one day, Bill Tanner. One day. But overall, I give characters a full star because the chemistry was good, the villains were good, the heroes were good. It was good. It was all good. So characters get a full star. And now to kind of summarize my thoughts on the Bond movie known as Spectre. It was good. I have no real complaints with just a couple nitpicks here and there, but aside from that, I don't really have that many complaints with it. I liked it. Did it top Skyfall? No, and I was expecting it not really to top Skyfall. Part of me hoped it would be as good as Skyfall, and I think that's where people kind of were let down, because they were expecting something as good, if not better, than Skyfall, and that's not what they got. They got their own... They got the next Bond movie. That's what they got. And that's kind of what I expected, so that's why my expectations for this movie weren't as shattered as much, because I got what I came to see. I got Bond. I got everything I wanted from the Bond franchise movie, so it's a good Bond movie. I mean, there's not much wrong with it. Overall, I give this Bond film a 9 out of 10. It is a very good Bond movie, and I don't have it here, but if I were to place it somewhere in my ranking list, I would probably put it somewhere in my top 12. I'm thinking that's where I'd put it. Because it is definitely better than a lot of the other Bond films, but there are a couple that I think do better, and others that I would watch before I rewatch Spectre. So, overall, I give it a 9 out of 10, though. Anyway, this has been my James Bond review of Spectre, and I hope to see you guys in a couple other months for the next one. So, this has been Solomon Pleasant, signing off.